The conference really is divided into two parts, the plenaries and the workshops. And at the heart of the plenaries this year will be 8 or 9 sessions by capable preachers who are expounding Old Testament texts that drive toward Christ and the gospel. So in part, it's trying to actually inform people as to what biblical theology looks like. How do you read the Bible in such a way that you get to Jesus? And on another part, it's modeling of good preaching. It's a how-to of how it should be done. And so we have some texts like, I think that you're doing Exodus 14, aren't you? That is getting out. How does the Exodus relate to the New Testament?
That's right.
And someone else is doing Psalm 110. What does Melchizedek have to do with anything? And so forth. So it's an attempt to try to build a diverse array of Old Testament texts into faithful gospel preaching. So that's at the heart of the plenaries. And then we have planned 36 workshops.
Yeah.
Do you recall some of them?
Oh, you mean all the different workshops?
Yeah, at least some of them.
What's great about the workshops, rather than it's a mixture of more theological, where you're dealing with issues, especially issues that people are wrestling with, biblical issues, and very, very practical as well. Also, there's plenty that for example, we have women's workshops this time, which we did not last time. But we also have workshops that talk about student ministry or talk about various sorts of populations. Two things that I loved about last time, I'm thinking, let me go back, because last year was our first conference. That sounds terrible because I'm one of the conveners of this. It was way better than I thought it was going to be, even though I planned it. First of all, I think what's great about the exposition is it's a combination of actually feeding people as you're showing them how to feed people.
That's exactly right.
And it's a little bit like when I was a young father. In order to get my son to open his mouth, I used to say, I put it in my mouth first and go, isn't that good? Which means I was tasting the food that I was feeding him, and then he was able, he would open his mouth. In some ways, we're tasting the food. We're giving them a taste of the food. To say, isn't this great? Now go feed. And it's the most life-changing way. I mean, I know Lloyd Jones, Dr. Lloyd Jones used to not like how to teach. He didn't like to teach people to preach. He didn't like lectures on preaching.
Although he eventually gave a whole series of lectures on preaching.
Yes, which are wonderful.
Which are really very great.
However, he basically said, you need to expose yourself to great preaching. And those who have the gifts will learn from it and do it.
And one of the things we did in that respect last time, and we're doing it again this time, is to preserve a diversity of forms of preaching. It's all expository in one fashion or another, but there's nobody controlling the whole shot in terms of one model or one style.
No,
I think that's important.
You were great at that last time, showing how different we were, and so that none of the all those young people that came would have we have a tendency when you're young to say that's good preaching, and then you're slavishly. You slavishly imitate the person, almost down to the tones of voice, which is a great mistake.
I tell my students at Trinity that if you listen to only one preacher, you become a bad clone. If you listen to 2, you become confused. You listen to 50, you're on the edge of wisdom and beginning to become yourself. And so that's in part the aim of that plenary series.
It's a big country, so it's a little dangerous to say this. I don't think there's anything like it. It's not the conference with 3 or 4 great speakers. This is more than 3 or 4 great speakers.
That's right.
And that gives them the variety so that there's not this danger of people slavishly imitating just one.
And in the workshops, as you said, there's a diversity of content from fostering a praying church, things like that, to doctrinal areas that have to be thought through. And we have 3 or 4 panels
That's right.
that will inevitably attract attention on the future of theological education or on how to structure a church.
Yes.
Things like that we're divided over ourselves, but we need to try to air things out as best we can.
Is that more panels than last time?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So we're doing more of that because they were helpful.
We have 1 panel in the plenaries, but we have 2 or 3 panels in the workshops themselves.
Right.
And
that's right.
And the venue is going to be bigger, so we fully expect several thousand more people. It's
Exciting.
a McCormick Place in downtown Chicago.
Exciting.
And some people might, because it's downtown Chicago, bring their whole families, and they can go off and do Chicago museums and waterfront and things like that while we're at McCormick Place.